Grazia Deledda. Grazia Maria Cosima Damiana Deledda, born on the 27th of September 1871, died on the 15th of August 1936, was an Italian writer who received the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1926 for her idealistically inspired writings which with plastic clarity picture the life on her native island, and with depth and sympathy deal with human problems in general. She was the first Italian woman to receive the prize, and only the second woman in general after Selma Lagerlöf was awarded hers in 1909. Deledda was born in Nuoro, Sardinia, into a middle-class family, to Giovanni Antonio Deledda and Francesca Cambosu, as the fourth of 7 siblings. She attended elementary school, the minimum required at the time, and was then educated by a private tutor, a guest of one of her relatives, and moved on to study literature on her own. It was during this time that she started displaying an interest in writing short novels, mostly inspired by the life of Sardinian peasants and their struggles. Her teacher encouraged her to submit her writing to a newspaper and, at age 13, her first story was published in a local journal. Some of Deledda's early works were published in the fashion magazine L'Ultima Moda between 1888 and 1889. In 1890 Trevisani published Nell'Azzurro, Into the Blue, her first collection of short stories. Deledda's main focus was the representation of poverty and the struggles associated with it through a combination of imaginary and autobiographical elements. Her family wasn't particularly supportive of her desire to write. Deledda's first novel, Fiori di Sardinia, Flowers of Sardinia, was published in 1892. Her 1896 book Pisaghi Sardi, published by Speroni, is characterized by a prose both informed by fiction and poetry. Around this time Deledda initiated a regular collaboration with newspapers and magazines, most notably La Sardinia, Piccola Rivista, and Nuova Antologia. Her work earned significant visibility as well as critical interest. In October 1899, Deledda met Palmiro Modazzani, a functionary of the Ministry of Finance, in Cagliari. Modazzani and Deledda were married in 1900 and the couple moved to Rome right after the publication of Deledda's Il Vecchio della Montagna, The Old Man from the Mountain, 1900. Despite the birth of her 2 sons, Sardis, 1901, and Francesco Franz, 1904, Deledda managed to continue to write prolifically, publishing about a novel a year. In 1903 she published Elias Portalù, which was met with commercial and critical success, boosting her reputation as a writer. This was followed by Cinere, Ashes, 1904, Ledera, The Ivy, 1908, Sino al Confine, To the Border, 1910, Colombi e Sparvieri, Doves and Sparrows, 1912, and her most popular book, Canal Vento, Reeds in the Wind, 1913. In 1916 Cinere was the inspiration for a silent movie with famed Italian actress Eleonora Duse. It was the first and only time that Duse, a theater performer, appeared in a film. Deledda was one of the contributors of the nationalist women's magazine, Lidell, which was established in 1919. In 1926 Henrik Schuck, a member of the Swedish Academy, nominated Deledda for the Nobel Prize in Literature. Deledda won for her idealistically inspired writings which with plastic clarity picture the life on her native island and with depth and sympathy deal with human problems in general. She was awarded the prize in a ceremony in Stockholm in 1926. Her initial response to the news was, "Already?" Deledda's win contributed to increase her popularity. Benito Mussolini, who had just consolidated his grip to power and established fascism, sent Deledda a signed portrait of himself, with a dedication where he expressed his profound admiration for the writer. Flocks of journalists and photographers started visiting her home in Rome. Deledda initially welcomed them but eventually grew tired of the attention. One day she noticed that her beloved pet crow, Cheka, was visibly irritated by the commotion, with people constantly coming in and out of the house. "If Cheka has had enough, so have I," Deledda was quoted as saying, and she returned to a more retired routine. The events also put a strain on Deledda's extremely methodical writing schedule. Her day would start with a late breakfast, followed by a morning of hard reading, lunch, a quick nap and a few hours of writing before dinner. Deledda continued to write even as she grew older and more fragile. Her subsequent works, La Casa del Poeta, The House of the Poet, 1930, and Sol d'estate, Summer Sun, 1933, indicate a more optimistic view of life even as she was experiencing serious health issues. Deledda died in Rome at the age of 64 of breast cancer. La Chiesa della Solitudine, The Church of Solitude, 1936, Deledda's last novel, is a semi-autobiographical depiction of a young Italian woman coming to terms with a fatal disease. A completed manuscript of the novel Cosima was discovered after her death and published posthumously in 1937. Deledda's work has been highly regarded by writers of Italian literature, including Luigi Capuana, Giovanni Verga, Enrico Thaves, Pietro Pancrasi, Renato Serra. Sardinian writers including Sergio Ozzini, Giulio Angiani, and Salvatore Manazzu, were greatly influenced by her work, prompting them to found what has later become known as the Sardinian Literary Spring. In 1947, artist Emilia Comboni was commissioned a portrait of Deledda, currently standing close to her home in Rome in the Pincio neighborhood. Deledda's birthplace and childhood home in Nuoro was declared a National Heritage Building and purchased in 1968 by the municipality of Nuoro, which in 1979 handed it over to the Regional Ethnographic Institute, ISRE, for the symbolic price of 1,000 Italian lire. The institute transformed the house into a museum commemorating the writer, and it's now called the Museo Deleddiano. The museum consists of 10 rooms showcasing the most important episodes in Deledda's life. On December 10, 2017, Google celebrated her with a Google Doodle. Thanks for watching HerStory channel. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe our channel.